On this week's show, we talk about Daniel Bryan possibly being stripped of his championship, Summer Rae's face turn, Bo Dallas about to make his debut, and The Shield changing the game on this edition of Byte That. Hello everybody and welcome to episode 39 of Byte That, the semi-somewhat maybe international professional wrestling podcast where we talk about the ups and downs of that which we love, which is the world of professional wrestling. My name is Juan Velos. I am from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and ladies and gentlemen, the 3 Live crew is back because I'm joined first all the way from Boston, Massachusetts by Ryan McNulty. How are you, sir?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing pretty good, Juan. I'm glad that the 3-man band is back together again.
We're always going to be clicking. We're always going to be together like the NWO 2000. Ain't that right, Keith, who hails from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada?
I can't think of another group that has 3 in the name, so I'm just going to say, beware, we're coming for you, because it's the remix.
Three's Company, baby.
Yes, so we're coming and knocking on
Sounds
your
like you're talking like tweet of the week.
Beautifully done, Keith. Beautifully done.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
And before we go on any further, we do want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in, for listening to the show. Remember, you can check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast, where we have a growing community. And a quick shout out to Sergio Soccer Gaming. He is part of that community, consistently interacting with us. You can also check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/ByteThatCast, where we tweet during Raw and other wrestling events. And hey, check out the podcast on iTunes and Stitcher every Wednesday. Leave a review if you like the show, and it's also available every Thursday on YouTube. Now, Raw was taped this week, so it's always sort of bittersweet when this happens, because I don't know about you guys, but I try my best to avoid reading the spoilers, because it's sort of the reason that I don't like to watch Smackdown all that much, because you know what happens. And even if you haven't read that, am I the only one that just feels like, I don't know, it feels weird, like this already happened?
You're alone in that one. I love reading spoilers. It's kind of like, hey, I know what's going to happen, but I still know, like, I still want to see it unfold.
I totally agree with Juan on this one, because even though I haven't watched it yet and I know it's taped, it doesn't feel like anything can happen anymore. We already know what's gonna happen, at least some people do. I don't know, it's a weird feeling, but I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so some of the things that did happen, it was in the UK. So aside from the fact that we did get the return of 3MB as the Union Jacks, you also got a pretty interesting announcement from Stephanie McMahon. We do know, of course, that Daniel Bryan went under successful neck surgery last week. He will still be out for quite some time. But then Stephanie McMahon comes out and teases the WWE Universe that maybe, just somewhat maybe, she may strip Daniel Bryan of the WWE World Heavyweight Championship and hand it off to the Demon Kane. I want to quickly ask you guys, what was your initial reaction when you heard about that?
So it's definitely concerning that she's name-dropping all these people that she's going to give the title to. So we've kind of gotten reports on both sides of they might keep it on him, they might give it to someone else, depending on that recovery timetable. So based on the fact that they're having this surrender the title segment next week, do you think they're actually going to strip him, or this is just a way to further the storyline with him and Stephanie?
I think they're just trying to further the storyline, because Daniel Bryan's probably going to come out if he even shows up. Like, there's even been reports that he's not even advertised to show up next week on Raw locally. So he shows up, maybe he gets knocked out by Kane again, and it just keeps delaying and delaying the storyline until they know for sure. But if Daniel Bryan's going to be out till SummerSlam or somewhere like that, can they actually keep the title on him? Because that's a really long time to go without a champion.
I mean, at least for me, I do think it's to further the storyline, because obviously they don't want the whole yes movement to grow cold. So what better way than to just have Stephanie McMahon tease the possibility of stripping him of the championship. Will they do it? I don't know. I don't think they will, because I don't really see him going towards the chase again, especially after so long. But as Keith, as you mentioned, I also don't see the possibility of him just being all the way out till SummerSlam. That seems a little extreme.
Now, when Stephanie was name-dropping, she explicitly said one name, and that's Triple H. Do you think that's actually a possibility? Like, could it happen that the WWE World Heavyweight Championship kind of gets roped into the Shield Evolution storyline?
I mean, that would be a really interesting development. I feel like this whole surrender segment, though, is a reason to keep the story going. I mean, if they were gonna strip him of the title, they would have done it by now, I think, because you want to put it on somebody right away to establish them. But with Triple H as champion, that would be really interesting, because then all of a sudden you might have one of the members of the Shield actually challenging for the title, which would be a really big deal.
Because think about it, Extreme Rules is in 2 weeks. So
You mean
they
Payback?
just need
Yeah.
Payback.
There you go.
Extreme Rules happened
They
like
all
2
seem
weeks
to blend
ago.
together.
They do. It's crazy. All these names. I mean, Vengeance might be next month for all I know. But that's in 2 weeks. So they only need to delay it 2 more weeks in order for them to put the title on Triple H and not interfere with the current storyline. That's not honestly all that long.
But would it make sense to blend that with, as you mentioned, with the whole Shield Evolution thing? Doesn't it seem a little convoluted?
We're in an interesting predicament, like you said. So Payback really is 2 weeks away? Is
I believe so. I remember hearing that at some point last night.
So we're really in a situation where it's looking like we're not even going to see a world title match at this pay-per-view at all.
No.
Because
I don't think there's a chance
there's
at
really,
all.
if they put it on Triple H or any Evolution member, they've already got that 6-man tag match sort of locked in.
And to go back to your point, Juan, even though it kind of seems weird, it seems to make more sense than either A, not having a champion, or B, Kane being champion.
Exactly. I mean, the only scenario that I can see right now is the traditional, like, hey, everybody wants to go for a championship, and they all conveniently come out one right after the other. So what better way to either you have a tournament or you have some kind of a crazy TLC match. You know, that's what usually happens when a guy gets injured. You know, as you mentioned, Ryan, we may have a pay-per-view that doesn't have the main championship being defended, so you at least make up for it by adding a crazy match type or something.
What's the next pay-per-view? Is it Money in the Bank?
Yes. The one I get to go to.
Woo! So maybe they get rid of Money in the Bank,
No.
and then the title
Shut
gets hoisted from the top of that ladder.
Oh, well, actually that is interesting.
So instead of getting the briefcase, you get the championship. So that way they can have 6 people fighting for that title.
That would be kind of bittersweet, I think, because even though that would be a really exciting match if they did that, it would be very disappointing to go a whole year without actually having a Money in the Bank winner, because a lot of that fun of the Money in the Bank is speculating when they're going to cash in. And if we don't have that, I'll feel like, you know, we've had this for so long, it would feel like a part of WWE is missing.
Exactly. You got to keep in mind that WWE's changed the Money in the Bank already. It was a WrestleMania thing. Now we have the Battle Royal. I guess that's going to stay. If they now change the pay-per-view or special event, although they're still calling it pay-per-view, and change the stipulation of the winner, it's just going to seem odd.
But if you think about it, the Money in the Bank is kind of already dead, because the Raw Money in the Bank always got cashed in immediately. And it was the same case last year. Now that they've merged the titles, there's probably only going to be one Money in the Bank. That Smackdown Money in the Bank is inherently dead already. That's the one that you're always wondering, when are they going to cash it in? When are they going to cash it in? And that just doesn't exist anymore.
Well, I think with one Money in the Bank, it's sort of, it brings it back to its roots, and I think it would be more like it used to be, where they'll give it to a guy who you think could definitely win the championship, the top championship. I think it'll be better, because with 2, they felt like they had to give it to a top guy and a lower guy, and you didn't know if it was going to work out or not. Like, one of them was going to
Stop making Sandow
not successfully
feel
catch.
bad.
Yeah, I know. But basically, I feel like if they just have one, it's going to be used better and will be more effective.
Okay, so I know we're getting away from the original topic here a bit, but who would you give the Money in the Bank to? Would it be a member of the Shield?
Cesaro.
Cesaro? Okay, well, let's say you'd give it to a member of the Shield for my point. Who would be better than Triple H for them to cash it on?
I'm just gonna point out, I love the fact that you're like, so Ryan, so I have a question. Doesn't matter what you answer. I'm gonna change the answer.
You're supposed to say yes. You don't know your role here.
So the Shield, any member of the Shield being involved as the winner?
I think that makes the most sense. And with if Triple H does end up being champion, kind of the perfect person to cash it in on, I
think there's a lot of things that we're not, because we still have a ways to go before SummerSlam. We gotta think, the moment you decide to incorporate Brock Lesnar at some point, that's gonna change the whole spectrum of this. Because obviously, there's nowhere for him to go but the championship, even if he's part-time or something, as we mentioned previously. So, I think that Payback overall is gonna be just that great match, or maybe they're just gonna book the whole show out of great matches that maybe don't necessarily continue a lot of storylines, but are fun to watch. But I can't believe, I keep forgetting the fact that Money in the Bank is just gonna be that one match probably, which at the same time you gotta think sucks, cause a lot of people enjoyed having the two matches in that show, and now you just get that one. So it's like, that better be a damn good match.
I mean, we shouldn't get too much into Money in the Bank, cause we'll be talking about that all next month, but I think with one ladder match, it won't dilute the ladder match on the show, because with two ladder matches, they had to go nuts to stand out, and they had to have different styles and all that.
And to be
it'll
fair,
help balance the show.
The biggest match in Money in the Bank history wasn't even a ladder match.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people assume it is.
Payback. We should be talking about Payback.
All right, well then let's talk about Payback.
Okay, so Payback. The show ends. Will we see a new champion regardless of who it is?
Don't think so. I just think the title's going to take a bit of a back seat for that pay-per-view at this point.
I'm thinking, I don't know if we're going to see a new champion by then, but I think one way or another, Daniel Bryan is probably going to get stripped of the title, because I still think it's probably going to be a SummerSlam return, and you just can't go that long without the championship. So Triple H is a realistic option. I don't think Kane is, and I think Randy Orton is also another realistic option, although it would seem like they're sort of backtreading to give it back to him.
Mm-hmm. My prediction would be that we're not going to find out anything about the WWE World Heavyweight Championship until the Raw after Payback. They're just going to kind of leave that hanging, and then that's when they'll move forward with what they do.
So speaking of other amazing things that we did get confirmation on Raw, I know that you've just been dying to know about this, Ryan. I mean, you are an avid viewer of Total Divas. It is now official.
Yes.
Coming off of Raw, Summer Rae has turned face, man. How you feeling?
Confused.
Whoa.
Interrupted.
Whoa. Yes, you feel interrupted. That's for not following my bouncing ball earlier. But face turn, would you really call it a face turn? I think we need to kind of define face here before we go forward. Like running into the ring, kissing somebody else's man and kind of slutting it up. Is that really
of course,
a face?
Man. It's wrestling.
But that really?
See, this is. I don't think I really said this a lot during the show, but whenever we watch Raw or something, Ryan will bring something up. Then I'll just tell him, Ryan, are you playing logic to wrestling? And I always think that to myself. It's like, hey, she just came on, made out with that dude who has a girlfriend. Turn face. It doesn't matter what her actions are. It's who she's doing it to.
Shame on us for applying logic, but I think WWE...
It's a shameful thing.
Lobsterhead. WWE has put themselves in this weird situation with Summer Rae. They sort of double dipped, if you will, because they want to push her as a face because, she's gonna be in the Marine movie, right? But then on the other side, they decided to put her on Total Divas and make her like the biggest in the world. So how is she going to be a face? Because when you watch her on TV, you want to stick your hand through the TV and choke her to death.
I can't take it anymore. You're talking about double dipping and sticking your hands in places.
God damn. We have an explicit tag on iTunes, man. Damn.
Fantasy.
No. I'm bringing it back. Well, we'll come back, nothing. No, but it is interesting that they are kind of turning her face because it seems really weird. It seems like she's a natural heel. Like, I don't know if it's just gonna be like we've talked about this, that WWE blurs the lines now between babyface and heel. So maybe that's it, and they're just trying to have divas like Alicia Fox, who on Raw continues to be showing this character development and just celebrating this really weird fashion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're sort of at a stage with the Divas division that you can really only push so many people at a time. And I know they want to push Summer Rae for the movie, but it's like they're having a hard enough time trying to develop Paige and the Alicia Fox storyline, which I think is going well.
It's actually interesting because you just made me think about that the Total Divas are they've taken a back seat to a back seat to a back seat at this point. So there's Paige, then there's Alicia Fox, and now there's Summer Rae. Like they're kind of the low on the totem pole as far as everything goes now.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because at first when Total Divas came on, it's like, okay, so the focus is on them and then the other divas. But now it's sort of switched to, like, Total Divas is the after show, where before it was like Total Divas, something would happen, then, I don't know, it seems like it's really weird, the fact that they tape it so beforehand, and I think it's finally caught up to them, that it's hard to apply that logic.
And also, they did announce season 3 for Total Divas, and guess who's gonna be on it?
Melina?
Bo Dallas.
Rosa Mendez, and I'm pretty sure they're doing it just so people can know that she's still alive.
Probably.
Bueno, tal vez ellos quieren como que esa audiencia hispana, maybe they want to appeal to the Hispanic audience. I guarantee you that's pretty much it. Seriously. I mean, you put the name Rosa Mendez is there. Wrestling has a large Hispanic fan base. I can speak for the fan base here in Puerto Rico. So I think that's a tremendous option. Although it's kind of funny because it's so obvious. Because here's a diva that has at no point pretty much had a singles career. She started as a fan that had no wrestling experience, quote unquote, and then started tag teaming and then just randomly turning face with the, Primo and Epico, and now she's at this position. So it's kind of weird. We're talking about backseason positions. What are we doing today?
Yeah, it's a strange one, Mr. Grinch. So is like Summer Rae gonna take this weird turn in season 3? Where she's not a cat anymore, and now
it's possible. It is very possible because I've started to notice that, and we're just going to use this word. Hey, we got the explicit tag on iTunes. You've been warned, all right? So, because I mean, season 1 had its own in Eva Marie. Mm-hmm. And now Eva Marie's kind of becoming likable, which is weird. It makes me feel weird in the pants. But now we got Summer Rae taking over as, the prime of the season. So, I think
I never should have said that word. Now I feel really uncomfortable.
Wait, I'm just gonna point out, can prime of the season please be somebody's nickname in wrestling, please?
Well, I was gonna say, for season 3, we can fully expect Rosa Mendez to get delicious.
Speaking of delicious, I think it's time for this week's Tweet of the Week.
This is something else. So I have a question for you guys to lead into this week's Tweet of the Week. Lead into this week's money shot, one might say.
Huh.
Did y'all ever play Bubsy back in the day?
What's Bubsy?
Really? Oh, well, whatever. So Bubsy was a video game, Sega Genesis. One of the key lines from Bubsy was him saying, "What could possibly go wrong?" So, yeah, that's Bubsy. So that's the theme of this week's Tweet of the Week. So this week's Tweet of the Week is brought to you by Dixie Carter at TNA Dixie. Almost the 300K. Let's see how quickly hashtag Team Dixie can get me there. My 300,000th follower will win a phone call with me.
Thank you, Keith, for that somewhat maybe beautiful Tweet of the Week. And remember, if you're the owner of a multi-million-dollar wrestling company, maybe you could be our next Tweet of the Week. And hey, for the first time, I'm gonna break the rules here, guys. I'm actually gonna make it possible to relate the Tweet of the Week to a topic in the show. How does that sound?
I can't even comprehend that, actually. My brain is
What
just
could
not even working.
possibly go wrong?
I'm actually going to ask you guys right now. So, this person could potentially get a phone call from Dixie Carter. Now, Ryan, I'm going to take it to you first because you love the ladies. Okay. That was so stupid.
I love it, actually.
My ribs hurt. Okay. Okay. So Ryan, taking this question to you first. If you were to get a phone call from TNA's Dixie Carter, the president of that company, and she said, Ryan, what's up? What'd you talk to her about? What would that conversation be like?
I would ask for her Snapchat and then send
a pretty picture.
And
Really?
and then
Really?
I don't know, get banned from TNA for
Really?
life.
Okay, so Keith,
Yes, banned from TNA for life. No, hold on. Banned from TNA for life. Like, you ever had a hope in hell of being there in
Well,
the
like,
first place?
from the shows, I couldn't attend the shows. Not that I would.
Oh.
I've actually never been to the TNA shows.
Yes, TNA has a list of people that are allowed in. Oh, this Ryan McNulty guy, he sent it
A pretty
to
picture.
Dixie Carter. He's not getting in.
Who am I kidding, though? They would still take my money. Are you kidding me? They're desperate.
They'll take it where they can get it at this point. dude.
let's take it back here a little bit. Keith, you're the serious one of the show. So,
Totally. What could possibly
exactly.
go wrong?
So what would you talk to Dixie about?
I'd just ask her why. And just see where it went. Like, I'd let her fill in the blank. Just why, Dixie? And then see where it went.
I'd also ask for their financial statements. To see their cash flow positive.
Okay, so I'm gonna be the slightly more serious person here. Because I am the darker tone here, so I'm gonna set the tone down.
You're the
here.
Lance Storm of this
Exactly.
podcast.
If I could be serious for this
Yes.
podcast. I actually did talk to Dixie Carter once. When I went to my last Impact Wrestling taping in Florida, she was just randomly walking around the crowd, and it was just like one of those things where you look behind you and there's Dixie talking to nobody because, you know, it's a lot of these people that have no idea what TNA is. This is before they went on the road and then back again, like a hobbit. And then... Oh my god. Okay, so clearly something happened before we hit the
Leave
record
that
button.
in.
Okay,
Yeah.
so no, but it was the most awkward thing because it's like, what do we talk to her about? Like, hey, I'm a fan of the show, of this upstart company. So it was literally just like, hey, I know you. You're the TNA president. Can I take a picture with you? And that was about our conversation. But she stayed for a while. She actually spoke in Spanish. So it was actually cool that she wanted to get, just to know some of the people that are there. That or she was just happy to see that somebody actually recognized her. I don't know which one of the two. I'm going with the more positive one. So.
Speaking of positives,
What, sir?
you have a new show.
That is a positive. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Juan Velas. And, no, being all serious now, so we've talked about expanding our YouTube channel. As you all know, we do have the weekly filler, which is the show where Ryan talks about some of the things we weren't able to cover in the podcast. But there's been other topics that we just want to get really directly into talking about. You know, like a 3-4 minute segment. And after a lot of pre-production, we are proud to announce that starting next Tuesday, next week, we will be posting episode 1 of The Cheap Seat. This is going to be about a 3 to 5 minute show that is going to be bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, and I'm going to be talking about a hot topic. A lot of times, it's going to be a controversial topic. A lot of times, you may not necessarily agree with some of the opinions, but I will do my best to justify why I believe in what I'm saying. The first topic, I'm going to start it off hot, because we are leading into Money in the Bank, which was a very key point in somebody's career. And then a payback is going to be at a certain location, and the topic is going to be CM Punk being gone from the WWE and him possibly not coming back again. So tune in. Let us know what you think about the show. Please leave a comment on the YouTube channel once it's up. Remember, it's going to be on the Tuesday after next week's Raw. So Raw's on every Monday. What am I talking about? But that's it. We hope you enjoy the show, and we'll see you all next week. No, we actually do have many more things to talk about right now on the podcast. Keith,
yeah.
I know that you're a fan of this IRS folk who developed two delicious babies that are very well recognized in the WWE now.
There's only two things in life guaranteed.
So, of course, I am talking about this terrible transition that is Bo Dallas making his debut on Smackdown this week. What should actually be happening? Is Smackdown happening right now on Tuesday? We recorded the podcast on Tuesday, but since we're in the UK.
I believe it's happening a little early because of the whole UK thing, so
okay,
yeah.
So by this time, Bo Dallas will have made his debut on Smackdown. And I just wanted to get your initial reactions now that it is confirmed he is coming on SmackDown. What is the reasoning behind that? And just sort of, do you think it's going to lead to somewhere? Bo Dallas knowing what we know about his character on NXT?
I think it's weird that he's debuting on SmackDown. It kind of feels like they're pushing Bo Dallas to the side. But at the same time, it seems like this week there's going to be a huge push on SmackDown. Because Hulk Hogan's going to be on SmackDown, probably because they can edit whatever the heck is going to come out of Hulk Hogan's mouth. So it's the safe bet. But yeah, Bo Dallas is debuting. By the time we're recording this, he's already debuted, and he's using the Stratusfaction as his finisher. I find that very interesting.
He's been using that for quite a while. He's been using either the spear or that springboard bulldog.
Because I've only seen the spear. I've seen the spear.
Yeah, he was doing the springboard bulldog. I'm getting all smart. I'm not calling it Stratusfaction. No, he was doing that before the spear, but then when he really got into this character, that's when he started doing the spear, so it's kind of odd that he's going back. But at the same time,
it makes sense why he's going back,
yeah.
Though. How many people on the roster already do the spear? Wasn't
he doing some weird, like, off the ropes, belly to belly-ish throw thing? I don't know. Wasn't that some finisher he was doing? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Do not recall that, sir. I do not recall that.
Well, he did it.
Alright, I'll take your word for it.
No, but it is actually going to be interesting. So, this is Bo Dallas's second debut on WWE television, oddly enough. First time didn't go all that great. For those that do not remember, he was a part of last year's Royal Rumble, and then feuded with Wade Barrett for an amazing 2 weeks, and that was never seen or heard from again for no reason at all. He actually beat...
I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
Yeah, you're going back to developmental, Bo.
Exactly.
But there is a travesty at work here with Bo Dallas's debut. I don't know if you know about this or not, but there's a conspiracy. And that is the fact that Bo Dallas is not debuting with the greatest theme in the history of themes. They changed his theme, and it's Bull Butter.
Yeah, no.
Bull Butter.
Yeah, in his final, I guess, NXT appearance, or final NXT appearance before, he's on the main roster, he already debuted that character, so he came out with the new Titantron, he came out with the new theme. I do kind of miss the previous one, because I think the thing that I liked about that gimmick was that he was not self-aware of the fact that people legitimately just wanted to kill him.
Totally.
And now it's sort of
and that's what made it beautiful.
Yeah, and now it's just like full-blown, I love everybody. It's very reminiscent of DDP's, last gimmick, which is, with the whole positive thing, a speaker guy. So, I don't know. I would have preferred the NXT guy, but maybe it'll work.
It'll definitely be interesting to see how it goes over, and how they're gonna tweak it, because we all have seen the tweaks that they've made from all the characters when they move up to the main roster, they usually kind of turn everything up and put a little bit of a different spin on it. But I sort of want to jump into the whole push of SmackDown. Obviously, you can watch last week's weekly filler and see how I talked about WWE making that deal for their TV rights fees.
Where can they find the filler? Can they find that at youtube.com/byte.com?
Yes, you said it. I didn't even have to say it. So they did their TV rights deal. Their stock goes down 45%. So do you think they're making this huge push for everyone to watch SmackDown because now they feel like they gotta kind of put up or shut up?
Aren't there rumors that SmackDown's gonna start going live on Tuesdays?
Yes, Ryan talked about that on the weekly filler.
I did.
Well, maybe they didn't watch
Maybe you
the filler.
didn't watch the filler. You support Ryan.
Maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't.
You didn't watch my show.
I love you.
No, but it is a possibility. It is being, not discussed, but being speculated, which would be terrible for us, by the way. But, that's beside the point. I do think that because, the stocks are going down, although, as you mentioned, Ryan, in the filler, we're no stock market professionals or something. So maybe that's part of the process. But apparently, a lot of people were disappointed in the new deal that was made. So maybe the WWE does feel the pressure to not have Raw be the WWE show and SmackDown's just like the sidekick. Maybe they want to try and have it be like it was around 2003, where it's two shows competing to be the very best.
That no one ever was. And I think they are under this pressure, and they're trying to, I think, deliver on all fronts to sort of prove their worth, for all of their television shows, considering they didn't exactly get the deals they wanted.
One thing that I find super interesting, and these numbers are from the WWE, but Main Event is one of the most watched shows on the WWE network. I wonder if, Main Event is kind of nipping at the heels of SmackDown at this point.
Well, I don't think so, because, first of all, these numbers, they never reveal how many people watch each show. The first one could hypothetically have 90% of network subscribers. The second one could have 20. By the time you get to number 5, it could be 5% of the people that have the network.
So you're already at 110% just from that.
It's hypothetical scenarios. I'm not adding.
Learn to math,
I'm not mathing that. I'm not mathing that.
Okay, but let's also think about the fact that those top network shows, they're not talking about who's actually watching it as it airs live, too. You gotta think about that. They're just saying who's watching. And I think their numbers are obviously lower than SmackDown because there's only something 600,000+ watching the network, and there's about 2 million people who watch SmackDown, I think. So it's still not there yet.
Will this lead to a brand split?
Absolutely not, but I do want to give a little bit of tidbit. I try to plug these in whenever I can. I was listening to the Paul Heyman edition of the Steve Austin podcast, and he was talking in one of the parts, because it's split, about how when it was a brand split, WWE literally treated as two different products, to the point that the reason that Paul Heyman was taken off the creative team on SmackDown was because Stephanie and Vince McMahon thought that he was listening to the Raw teleconference call. So it was so secretive to the point where the SmackDown team couldn't contaminate themselves by learning about what Raw is going to do. So I don't know if that's the type of methodology they still have, but I think it'd be awesome. But at the same time, it was as you mentioned, Keith, it was a brand split, so you could focus on CM Punk on one show, for example, now, if he were to come back, and then John Cena on the other. But you can't really have that division when, one guy could be on both shows that week.
Exactly, because especially in the last couple of years when they kind of got rid of the brand split, that's when SmackDown really
it was bland.
Started
that's
feeling like
that's why they ended
it. It was the bland split.
Really,
you see
by the end of
there?
it was.
Yeah?
It really was.
But since they kind of got rid of that, that's when SmackDown really started feeling like the B show, because you'd have all the top guys on Raw, and then SmackDown would be the show where you have the wrestling, where you'd have Dolph Ziggler shine and Sandow and all of them. So if they still have everybody on both shows, how can they bring SmackDown up to that level without just shoving the same people down our throat twice a week?
I have an interesting question for you guys. I kind of had a biased perspective back in this time, But to you guys, I know one, you didn't always get to watch Raw either, so maybe Keith is the best person to ask. Way back when SmackDown was relatively new, so we're going like 99 to 2000.
Back at the beginning.
Up until before the brand split happened. How did you feel about SmackDown? Because that was pretty much all I could watch for a lot of the time, so SmackDown was that was like awesome to me, and I loved it. And I felt like it was important, but then again, it was mostly all I could watch for most of the time I was watching then. But how did you feel about SmackDown then as compared to Raw?
It was, that's a good question. It was like an extension of Raw. It was something to keep the storylines going without having to wait till next week to see what was going to happen. So like the McMahon-Helmsley era was very big at the beginning there. So it was kind of, if The Rock would get one over on Triple H, then SmackDown was the place where Triple H would get one over on The Rock.
So
it was kind of like trading.
Important though, right?
It did feel important.
So there's definitely that balance that they could achieve. It just feels like SmackDown is there, and if you miss it, you don't miss anything.
But at the same time, that was a very different era. Like, you don't have your Rocks and Triple H. Well, I guess you still kind of have your Triple H's, your Stone Cold Steve Austins, and that kind of stuff. Those big people that could keep everything going.
I think it definitely helped that everybody who was on Raw also went on SmackDown, and maybe that hurt a lot of the lower card guys. But I think if John Cena was on SmackDown every week, that it would feel more important.
But there's one big factor that I think that you guys are forgetting. The reason that they also promoted SmackDown was because they were competing so heavily with WCW. Although at that point it wasn't nearly as strong. You know, that was nearing the whole end of the Monday Night Wars. They still had to promote each show as a pay-per-view. So, you know, Raw would have these big announcements and SmackDown would have these big things, but it's because they had to compete with other things that were out there, you know. Now it's like, if SmackDown and Raw are so good, maybe, just somewhat maybe, at least for me, it's like, what is the incentive to watch the pay-per-view or something like that?
Well, does there actually really need to be incentive anymore with the WWE Network? You get it anyway.
According to the numbers, there needs to be an incentive. I mean, there's even reports that, you know, they may need to raise the dollar price point, so it's going to be like $1 more a month to make a couple more bucks. I mean, the network hasn't really expanded internationally yet, but I think we're just being a little bit too comfortable with the fact that because the three of us have the network, we assume that everybody that loves the WWE has the network, and that's not necessarily the case.
That's right. I'm not supposed to have the network. I forgot about that.
There's, and there's also people who literally just still order the pay-per-views for no reason and are paying more money. And I guess WWE is pulling them, trying to figure out why. So I guess maybe there's some people who just don't have like a PlayStation 3 or Xbox or whatever device to watch it.
I mean, we even said it ourselves when we were talking about WrestleMania. Like, WrestleMania is really the one big example so far, but we were worried about people, we weren't worried about people. We were worried about
poor people.
If WrestleMania would actually work on the network or not. So that we kind of talked about, well, maybe ordering it just to have that definitive knowing that WrestleMania won't skip and have hiccups and stuff like that. So it's tough to say why people are ordering pay-per-views beyond that, but that's probably a big reason why.
And you also got to think, in my area, like I live in the Northeast, so it's easy for me to assume I have like a great internet connection and everything. That might not be as good for a lot of people in other parts of the U.S. I mean, totally. I know Juan has an absolutely fabulous internet connection.
Oh,
it works all the time.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's a great example. Like, a friend of ours, Jamie, his connection is literally like his upload speed is like 25 times better than mine. Sometimes we assume that everybody has accessibility to, proper internet, or sometimes we assume that everybody has internet. A lot of times, there are people that just have the cable box, that they have the pay-per-view box, and that when they hear about this network, they're like, oh, but then I gotta pay for internet, which I would only use for that, so I might as well just pay for the pay-per-view. So it's not even just getting people to get the network, it's getting people to get internet to get good internet, to get internet that doesn't have like these incredible bandwidth caps, like at 10 gigabytes or something when you have 720p streaming, and then get the network.
Interesting. Never even thought about that. Because now that the WWE is not even on DirecTV, those people are kind of pooched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's about the best way we can summarize it. I do want to give you guys a trick topic, because we've been talking about the brand split. And throughout the past couple of weeks, we were talking about the fact that, the Shield's still together and all that. And let's just make this a very isolated example. But say the brand split were to happen, do you think that would be the perfect opportunity to eventually split the Shield? Where it's not like, hey, Roman and the other two guys are on the same show. But maybe if they split, tag team here and then singles guy there, that would help smoothen things out.
Yeah, because that way they don't have to split up the Shield. Like they'll split it apart, but they won't, like the guys won't have to fight fight against each other and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're very Byte that hypothetical podcast this week.
Yeah.
But I mean that's a good way to split
talk
them
about
out
something. God damn.
It's a slow week, ladies and gentlemen. But no, it would be an interesting thing, but it's just I don't see that happening at all anytime soon. So it's hard to really dive into it. Sorry.
Yeah. So going back to this brand split thing, would you guys want to see it actually? Because back when it was a thing, like everybody complained about the brand split, that it needs to go away. But now, I don't know.
I think it's a matter of character development, because I think the brand split after a certain point, people didn't care about the split. They cared about this guy and that guy from the other show. Like for the longest time, think about the Smackdown versus Raw games. I mean, the name itself was a thing of like, you always wanted to see this guy take on that guy. And after a certain point, the roster got stale on either Raw or SmackDown. So you inevitably had to, do these fantasy matchups, these fanfic fantasy matchups between guys like John Cena and Randy Orton.
But as far as character development goes, wasn't the brand split a good thing? Because that gave characters more room to develop, because you're not having to put the same guys on both shows. It kind of gives them more room to grow.
At the beginning, I wasn't too happy about the brand split, but I think in the end, it definitely worked for the better to be able to have those two separate shows build up two separate sets of superstars. And I think it really did work. And we saw SmackDown become a very important show and really mattered. And it was, for a lot of the time, a lot better than Raw, because most of Raw was just Triple H, reigning over everybody. So it did create a lot of great things. But if you want to do a brand split today, you have to look and see that at the time that they did it, the rosters were super stacked. They just brought in all these WCW and ECW people. Right now, the roster, I feel like, is smaller. And yeah, they got a lot of promising talent, but they don't have a lot of established talent. And you need a lot of established talent to want to bring that back. And we just brought everything together, have one nice championship. Let's ride this out for a little while.
Yeah, good
exactly.
point.
And you mentioned, we have a lot of young up-and-comers that are very promising. I mean, we got to go back to the Shield, because I know there's a lot of things that you sort of want to bring up about them.
Yes. I was watching an interview that they did just this week for MTV's UK division. But they were saying their proudest accomplishment is not, working with The Undertaker or every name in the book. It's not, winning the United States Championship and the Tag Team Championships. But they said it's that they felt like they came in, they stepped up, and they feel that they changed the game because they feel like they made everybody else step up. And that their work ethic set the tone for how WWE is now versus before they showed up. So I wanted to ask you guys, do you feel that this is true, that since the Shield's come in, the product has actually gotten better because it's been this trickle-down effect?
I'll answer it with this. Whenever the WWE does a compilation, the best of whatever the hell, if they were to do a Shield one, I would actually have trouble picking out a single match because I've enjoyed the majority of their matches. There's a lot of guys where you feel like, oh, this is just another throwaway Raw match. But whenever the Shield's been involved, it feels like you need to see that. It doesn't matter who they're taking on. They make something special out of it.
Exactly. Like, go back to those early Shield matches when they first debuted, those like 6-man tag matches where everything they did in the ring was just damn near perfect. Those were really great matches to watch. Like, even back when he was big, they made a great match with Ryback. Think about that, if you haven't seen it, go watch, I think it was TLC 2 years ago now, where it was the Shield versus Ryback and Team Hell No.
2012, I believe.
Yeah. That is a frickin' amazing match.
And that was their debut match.
Yeah.
And that was their debut
yeah.
match. Yeah. So talk about setting the bar about as high as you can place it. And they've just constantly excelled.
Yeah, and when you talk about the Shield, think about other tag teams. You have the Usos, you have 3MB. All of these tag teams, and generally speaking in wrestling, are always similar. The Shield are a tag team, a stable that have always been different. But it seems like they become a family. And not like the Wyatt family, but a family is like, each one of them is different. But you can just feel the chemistry between them. Like they're all there for the very same purpose.
Well, let me run this idea off of you guys and get your opinions on it. The Shield are kind of the first of this new era.
Are we talking about the reality era?
If that's what you want to call it, but this new era of guys coming in that are just like setting that bar so high, like the Shield were kind of the first, because after them, then the Wyatts came in and all these other guys.
I mean, why are we having an event called NXT TakeOver? I think that's the absolute best answer out of this. I think that when the developmental center, the performance center, and NXT were announced, I actually remember a lot of people saying that it wasn't a good thing. Why? Because before, you would go to different areas, throughout the States or wherever, and then you would learn different styles. But now that you're in just one place, obviously you learn the WWE style. But I think that's been to a benefit almost, because as Cesaro said in multiple interviews, what is the WWE style? When you have Santino and Brock Lesnar in the same show, what defines that one style? And I think it's simply what makes people pop without you even, doing one move like Adam Rose has, for example.
To counter that a little bit, you kind of should look at the guys who are getting over now. And sure, there's a few exceptions, but most of the guys who are getting over now are those guys who did go around and work everywhere. The Dean Ambroses, Cesaros, and Seth Rollinses of the wrestling world. So there is that side of it. But then again, you can look at people like Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns who haven't.
And even before that, think about the biggest guys of this last era who, like, they weren't guys that went around the world. Like, John Cena was never a big indie guy. Batista was never a big indie guy. Daniel Bryan, or
whoa, go back, sir.
Randy Orton went straight to OVW. The guys that are at the top tier, they never were really big indie guys.
Well, I mean, I think the main point is that despite the fact that you go around or you go into the WWE, the fact that you have that one place where all these people can, coexist. I think Cesaro, to not counter your point, Ryan, but to actually benefit from it. In one interview, he was saying when, he's fought Sami Zayn multiple times, right? And he was saying that he enjoys going back to NXT because he can bring what he has to that table because he has to step up. Why? Because it's a WWE guy technically stepping down in a way into the smaller show. So he's got to show the bigger guys, this is why you got to come down here. Because these are the guys that are going to give you a run for your money. And when you see the other guy like Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville and all that step up their game, you're like, crap. So like, this is the future. And it sort of ties in with, what we were talking about last week with, what makes a compelling babyface. The roster is overstacked. Absolutely. You have Cody Rhodes. You have a lot of guys. But I think that NXT, the way that these guys are being groomed and divas, is definitely not just a positive step, but I think it's a revolution that's slowly going to be happening into the WWE. Do you guys think that way, or do you think that NXT is eventually just going to be a show? Because I don't see it that way.
Well, right now it's it's completely promising. I mean, we're getting this sneak preview about the future of WWE, and it seems like they are really just doing everything right there. These people when they show up on the main roster, they are far more ready than anyone's ever been before, because back in the day, they just sort of bring someone in and they just it was just hit or miss. You're just thrown directly into the fire with very little chance to succeed. And I think now people are just getting more of the tools, and they're willing to experiment because they're not so limited by ratings and all that, which I think is for the better.
Plus, in a lot of ways, it's still a little too early to say, because we haven't really had many full NXT guys really be on the roster for a while, because the Shield were really FCW guys more than anything. Same with the Wyatts. They kind of they were in the beginning of NXT and then moved and then debuted, but now that Adam Rose is debuting, Paige is debuting, they're full NXT people. And we'll see how they do,
well, not
I guess.
full NXT, because Leo Kruger was also in FCW, but we have had NXT exist long enough so that these are NXT guys happening, and divas. So, by the way, I do want to remind everybody, NXT TakeOver will be taking place on May 29th. That is a Thursday. It's going to be live on the WWE Network. It's going to be a 2-hour event. We will be reviewing it immediately after it concludes. We will be watching it. I know it's going to be great. We'll probably be talking about it a little bit more next week once we know a couple more of the matches. But with that being said, Ryan, take us home, man.
Alright, well, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. And before we go, do not forget to check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast. Remember, this Tuesday, Juan's going to be debuting The Cheap Seat, his new show where he's going to be talking about controversial topics, and the first edition will be about the CM Punk situation. Do not forget, depending on where you're listening to the show, you can listen to us on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. Just search Byte That. And do not forget to follow us on Twitter @ByteThatCast, where we tweet all week long, and especially during Raw and pay-per-view events. So that is going to do it for this week, and thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.